So good evening, Tewksbury. It is Thursday, October 15th, 2020, and the time is 6:17 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Tewksbury Board of Health to order. And I apologize for the late start, and for those that aren't able to watch it on YouTube Live, YouTube has an issue locally appears with live streaming meetings, but this meeting will be uploaded to the YouTube channel after the recording has been completed.
We're going?
Okay, so I'd like to take a quick roll call of board members because we do not have all 5 present.
We're going to bring it to order before or after? Or?
Yeah, so there are 3 of us, so we're able to at least still have a quorum. So we're still able to hold the meeting and vote on issues tonight. So the chair, Ray Barry, is present. And then for dial-in members, Charlie?
Charlie Rue is here.
Okay. And Dr. Bichetti?
Yeah, Tony Bichetti's here.
Okay. And then Susan, you can go ahead.
Susan Sawyer, Health Director here.
Okay. And we do have other invited guests, but we'll come to them when we get to them on the agenda. Okay. So moving on to our agenda, we have first item for business tonight is approval of minutes from our September 17th, 2020 meeting. Both Clerk Maria Zaroulis and I have had a chance to review and make edits to the minutes. So what you were sent includes the review comments that both Maria and I had. So do either member that is present on the call tonight have any questions about the minutes or any edits or suggestions?
I do not.
Nothing
Chairman.
here, Ray.
Okay. So hearing none, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September meeting as submitted.
Okay. Someone willing to second that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. So motion's been put forth and seconded to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2020 Tewksbury Board of Health meeting as submitted. We'll take a roll call audible vote. So Mr. Rue? Yay or nay?
Yay.
Okay. Dr. Bichetti?
Yay.
Okay. Chair votes aye as well. So motion carries unanimously 3-0. And just
Ray,
to note,
quick interruption. Yeah. Can you tell me what time you opened the meeting? I didn't write it down. I just want to get that right.
Okay, 6:17.
6:17. Thank you so much. Yep.
And again, members Maria Zaroulis and Robert Scarano were not present at the start of the meetings. That's why there were just 3 of us voting in the meeting minutes. Continuing on to new business. First, we have Marketplace, 1699 Shawshene Street, for violation to the Board of Health regulations entitled Restricting the Sale of Tobacco Products due to the discovery of more than 24 cigarette packs without a Massachusetts excise tax stamp.
So, Mr. Chairman, I was contacted by Ron Beauregard, the Tobacco Coalition for, Healthy Communities Tobacco Coordinator, number of weeks ago. Don't recall the date. Do you have? I don't know. He had received a complaint trickled down from a higher authority and asked me if I would meet him out there. And whenever you're ready, Ron, you can tell him what we found when we arrived.
Yes. Good evening. It was July 7th that I received a phone call from the Department of Public Health regarding an anonymous complaint of unstamped cigarettes, menthols, flavored cigarettes, and flavored vapes. Susan and I conducted the inspection on July 21st, and we saw we saw some unstamped cigarettes, and we ordered the removal. They were during our inspection, we did not see any menthol cigarettes or flavored vapes. We did a follow-up inspection on July 27th, and all of the unstamped cigarettes were removed. And notable was the cigarette display case was about a third, 2/3 of what it was originally we went in. Incidentally, on August 3rd, the owner of the establishment signed a retailer statement acknowledging many major provisions of the state law, including that they cannot sell menthol cigarettes and they cannot sell any tobacco until they receive documentation from the manufacturer certifying it's not a flavored tobacco product. Fast forward a bit, on September 15th, we received another anonymous complaint about unstamped cigarettes and menthol cigarettes. We conducted the inspection, Susan and I, the day after, on September 16th, and we did discover about 24 unstamped cigarette packs in a box under the counter. Noteworthy is I did find some blue-colored packs of Newport Platinums. They're not green. They're not the standard look of a Newport cigarette that is usually signals mentholated. And I regard that as an error and something that would not be considered uncommon. However, we did issue a citation for $100 in violation of your section of your local regulations 11.5.10, which conditions holding a tobacco sales permit on compliance with the Department of Revenue requirements. In this case here, there's a Department of Revenue requirements embodied in state law, Chapter 64C, Section 35, which requires a stamp indicating the payment of excise taxes. The marketplace paid that $100 ticket on September 25th. We're here, of course, because of the provision in your regulations that provide for the owner making a statement and how they could prevent any further violations in this regard or any other regard.
So I'd like to add one thing, and just to let you know that the owner, Dawn Fisher, is in attendance, and she did get her permit this year, actually in February. So she is a new owner of the marketplace. It was previously known as E-Market. It's located at 1699 Shawsheen.
So Ron, I have a quick question on this. So the fine here is for the violation of the Tewksbury tobacco regulations.
That's correct.
Is there also a state violation here where it's also violating state law, or is it because it was inspected by local, not state officials, that there is no state penalty?
Well, yeah, there are a couple. I made reference to the possession of the mentholated cigarettes, which, the focus of our of enforcing this new state law is education. So on that matter, a warning was given and to take note of the fact that, again, what has been signed by the owner is that they won't sell any, they understand they can't sell any tobacco or vape product until they receive documentation from the manufacturer, again, certifying that it's not a flavored tobacco product, for example, menthol, and that documentation must be located in the store. These are readily available, usually through distributors, and I do know that R.J. Reynolds has a listing of the cigarette brands that are permissible to sell in Massachusetts. I think it's called Reynolds American Inc. And noteworthy is the key for the owners of establishments is to simply look at that list. It can be lengthy, but in the case here of R.J. Reynolds, you'll see the Newports that are allowed to be sold, and that particular one was not. In regard to the unstamped cigarettes, there is a state law, but it's not within the purview of the our program. And that would be the requirement that I noted in Chapter 64C, Section 35, requiring the stamps. My concern, and of course the state did report this to the Department of Revenue, Now, normally the Department of Revenue, or I shouldn't say normally, I can't tell you what the norm is, but I do know what can happen is that they'll come in and they'll confiscate the unstamped tobacco products, and the violations are extremely severe. In the case here of a relatively smaller amount of untaxed cigarettes, it's punished by a fine of not more than $1,000 or imprisonment for more than 1 year. So this was a serious violation, and the fortunate thing is the folks over there, I made sure I emphasized that those unstamped tobacco products needed to be removed. My concern, frankly, is I want education, especially since this was a new owner of the establishment. And I feel responsible in a sense that here I am trying to do my best to inform them of all of the applicable laws that they may be violating. And while we have some discretion that we may hold, I couldn't vouch for what the state would do if the tobacco products were discovered by the Department of Revenue.
How common is it that unstamped cigarettes are found in Massachusetts, or at least the region you cover?
I don't know. It certainly it's peculiar, and I've never actually come across it. This is the first time. However, I think the circumstances in this case were unique. The store apparently was purchased, and there was some when you purchase this sort of establishment, it's my understanding that you purchase everything, including everything inside. And from what I understand, some of these tobacco products were in boxes or in storage or some sort of thing like that.
We asked Ms. Fisher what her answer would be to that question.
Oh, hello?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so just the situation surrounding the purchase of the business was a rather unique situation. For myself, I'm a first-time business owner. We closed on the business on March 17th of 2020. And I believe within a day or two, if not March 18th, was when the state was shut down for COVID. So, I mean, clearly I was dealing with not only a situation of being a new business owner, but also a situation of with no support, no suppliers, and for many months, most of our suppliers didn't show up. Coke, Pepsi, Red Bull, Pepperidge Farm, milk suppliers, J. Pollock, who is now our cigarette supplier. They were the existing cigarette supplier. But also, I mean, just, you know from yourselves, even though suppliers and stores are up and running, nothing is back to normal. So, I mean, I guess that's the foundation. I did buy existing cigarettes when I purchased the business. I bought most of the inventory. Yeah, so there were cigarettes, and also I'm not a cigarette expert, so I didn't even know. And also, like, related to the menthol cigarettes, I guess it was, for me, a menthol cigarette is a green pack. That's what I've learned over the past couple of months. So there were Newport Blue on our rack, but because it was blue, we didn't think it was menthol. So, I mean, clearly it's a learning process in an unprecedented situation. I'm hoping just to kind of answer all the questions quickly, and I know there will be more, but going forward, working with J. Pollock, and they have a distribution center in Wilmington, so I am going there personally every week to pick up our cigarettes.
Thank you, Dawn.
So, Ron, and I agree with you in your approach, because we, the board, have also tried to, we'd rather educate than regulate. And I guess
They're talking, not to me.
What is there for training materials that tobacco retailers get? I mean, there's no tobacco retailer training per se. And I have to assume that
There must be something. There must be something from the state, Ray. There has to be something from the state, so people in business, and maybe you can shed light on, give us guidance, Ron, on that.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, the me. You're looking at the person. Free contact. You can feel free to give me a call at any time at 978-490-8114. That's my cell. If you have any questions in regard to anything, the reason why we put together the statement of the applicant that was signed is to really put in concise fashion on one page the most important parts of the 105 CMR 665. Now, this was done for the convenience, pardon the pun, of all the convenience store owners and such, because there are links. There's a mass.gov/new tobacco law. It has anything and everything that a store owner would want to give them a headache. I mean, to give them all of the information that they need. But it is a lot. And I encourage reading all of the material that's on there, including a link to 105 CMR 665, which is the authority on all of the new state law that has been passed. There's also a masslegislature.gov laws, session laws. It's a link. These were included in the statement. They are available. It's the new state law entitled the Knack Modernizing Tobacco Control Law. Again, this here will give you everything in the law. Very cumbersome reading. The prior link that I indicated is not so cumbersome. It's pretty straightforward, tells you what you can and can't do. But everything on this form that was signed by all of the establishments in Tewksbury really lays out the most important, which are a requirement to ID every customer who wants to purchase vapes or tobacco, not to sell anything that's a flavored vape, not to sell anything that's a flavored tobacco, to just distinguish, especially among the smokeless products, that nicotine products are regarded as tobacco products and cannot be flavored. I suppose lastly, these two important documents that need to be on the premises, that the inventory, and in their case, this should not be, I can, at least my feeling from when I was in there was that the focal point, unlike other stores, is not tobacco. They have a relatively modest shelf space for tobacco, and the variety beyond cigarettes is quite limited. So that makes it a little bit easier. These documents that are obtained, the manufacturer's documents, on the case of the vapes, it's a manufacturer's document, usually provided to the store owner by the distributor, that indicates the nicotine content of any vape product in the store. And it has to be measured in milligrams per milliliter. And of course, for the convenience store setting and the like, it can't be any more than 35 milligrams of nicotine per milliliter. But again, they can rely on those forms. And then finally, the second form, what I mentioned earlier, was a form from the manufacturer that will list every product that manufacturer makes that is acceptable or presumed acceptable. And of course, the retailer can certainly rely on that document. Going a little beyond what we're talking about now is the discovery throughout the state of certain products that might be questionable why they're on that list. Perhaps something that's called a color instead of a flavor, and that would be up to each individual board to make a determination as to whether it's flavored, despite the manufacturer saying it is not. That's it in a nutshell. This is really there's really a handful that are the difference makers in this new law: the ID, the level of vape, the manufacturer's documents, the no flavored, and no tobacco or vapes other than behind the counter and out of reach of customers.
And Ron, I want to let you know, I spoke to one of our permit holders who also has stores outside your jurisdiction. And they think because of you did this great form, this is a local issue. and are not carding until they hear from their local board of health that this is accurate. And I told them, there's severe penalties along with these things, and not following or not knowing is not going to be good enough for them. And it was absolutely not a local thing. What was local is that you put it together for them to help them understand. So
thanks, Liz. And that's the key to this, because there's so many things that the owners are responsible for in the operation of their business. And we thought, as difficult of medicine as it was, meaning the state law, at least we could provide a succinct way for them to know the major highlights of the law. Because, it's one thing in your laws and your regulations, which they are in there, is that the owner agrees by, having the permit, that they're going to inform, they're going to read the law, they're going to read chapter, it's a lot to swallow. So I hope this ends up being a help.
I commend you again, Ron, for taking the time to do that. I'm sure has come up in other meetings. I'm not real tolerant of anybody when you want to start a business. I'm not sure what the purpose for this new business ownership was, but you need to measure twice, cut once, and do your due diligence for any business, because many people do not realize that when they sign a certificate or a permit, the obligations and the commitments that they have been mandated to. And it's troubling to me whenever I find, regardless of what the situation is, this case it's a tobacco, which has serious ramifications, but these rules, it's like reading an internal revenue form. There's a lot of stuff, and once you sign on it, you got to make sure that you know what's going on, or you're held accountable. That ignorance of the law is not an acceptable answer, and I just think it's great that you've been able to make things easier for people. But unfortunately, I'm finding in many things, not just what we're doing now in my field and others, people do things somewhat willy-nilly, and next thing you know, they've got a business and they got a problem that can have some serious ramifications. So I want to commend you for helping out the people in your jurisdiction, but I wish people would pay more attention to what they do and what their obligations are before they get themselves in situations that can kind of take on a life of their own. So is there a remediation for situations like this? Because it sounds like the party we're dealing with now, they had no idea about cigarettes or whatever, and I totally understand that someone may not care about that, but when one does go into business, they should be well prepared. So it is a little troubling, and I understand COVID-19 got involved in a lot of this stuff, and there's been delays with shipping and all this stuff. I mean, I deal with it myself, but are there or is there a system where maybe some type of remediation to get up to snuff on the rules and regs with that short synopsis that you seem to put together, so that I don't want to say a quiz or a test can be done, but I really would wish that, I mean, you got to drive a vehicle, you need to take a driver's test before they give you a license. And it troubles me, and when people go into business or have a business and they have no idea what they're doing with it and where they're held accountable, is there some kind of remediation just to help educate people? Because this is all about education. It's not about of enforcement, but nonetheless, had you not been aware of this situation, this could have taken on a very serious life of its own. And I'm wondering, is there something that you could maybe think about or put together on that maybe the person would have to get themselves up to speed, maybe do some boring reading, maybe read these documents, because just because people aren't aware of what's going on, when you run a business or you go into any endeavor where there's licenses, you are held to a high accountability. So my question to you is, can we somehow, this is a great format that you've put together for educating people and, making it somewhat easy reading, but is there a way for some kind of remediation to just put something together, make people understand exactly what's going on with this so it never happens again?
Well, earlier in the year, we had retailer training. That was before Dawn purchased this store. We went around.
Correct.
Yeah, and so this was helpful. Of course, perhaps we could try to work on something on a virtual nature at this point. I really feel
With
though
something
that,
yeah.
oh yeah,
If
Go
I
ahead,
can,
Ron, I'm sorry.
if I can just step in for a quick sec, I think there are two issues here. One, we have a new business owner who thought that they had purchased the store and all of its contents and that everything was 100% on the up and up.
Well, that's
And
the
most
first
of,
problem.
well, and the other thing is that, and I'm sure Ronnie can test this, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of what if scenarios that could play out in the whole tobacco product selling arena. And in all my time on the board, this is the first time this has ever happened. So I guess I look at a very simple thing could be to help all owners is just a quick fact sheet showing examples of how to tell if the product you're selling is, I won't say authentic, maybe that's the right term, but just a quick visual check to know that what you're selling is in fact what you're selling. Now, moving forward, when you're getting it from a distributor, you're assuming that that distributor is providing you the correct material or the correct supplies.
May I
so,
interject 1 second, Karen? Yeah. I do understand that, and I do agree, but needless to say, when product does come in, we all know we've bought something, something's been shipped, and I know I have a lot of experience going back many years with overseeing a store of this type, although the legislation and the rules have probably been a little bit more voluminous since I had done it. But no matter what, you have a store, and you have to check the date codes on the product. So just because a distributor, and I'm not trying to, I mean, I want this to work for our community, because I only want what's best for our community to protect the public and our youngsters with the issues that arise from smoking and vaping, and we're talking about this in particular. But just because you think your distributors are doing it, you still have to go to that trust but verify. And I think that I don't care who's going into a business, you can't be naive going into any kind of businesses thinking that date codes. You can have products that are shipped from the distributor, and they could be the outside of the box says, but the date code's an expiration date. So I think that that's one of the concerns that I do have. I know personally I'm just not as tolerant when, you just don't take everything at face value when you are a business owner. You have to do a lot more due diligence. I mean, it's any business. But anyway, I just wanted to let that be known. I just addressed that first concern that you had, because, distributors, everyone can make mistakes. And when you're the final link in the distribution process, ultimately, you're the one that's going to feel the impact of situations that should arise first. So I'll let you continue. Thank you for the time.
Yeah, so I think, Ron, you're on the right tact of just, this is now something else we need to be aware of or include in your overall educational packet. And yes, we would never have thought of it had this not happened, but it sounds like there's a chance this could happen again, potentially, if someone else decides to open up a new business and purchases an existing business. So I think whatever you can do education-wise, Ron, you've been doing a great job so far, and I'm sure you'll be able to add something into how you educate the tobacco sales license holders about checking their products.
And is there also an objective way, Ron, when I'm not trying to make more work for you because you do yeoman's work already, but is there a way, like when we do have a situation that arises like this, because as I said, we're dealing with adults, not children, and when you go into business, is there a way to get an objective analysis, or I don't want to say like a test or something, that it does involve some effort when things have to be remediated? I mean, I don't know if that's going to be, something that you would think would be more difficult, or I mean, I can't imagine it wouldn't be. I mean, is there some way that we can have have like a small test that says, okay, we got it and they understand it. So in the sheer, hopefully unlikely chance that it should happen again, we have a way to say, look, this is, you said you knew the rules, you said you did it. Okay, we're understanding this is a first time venture. Maybe you didn't know. I mean, maybe you didn't do all the due diligence that was needed to cover everything because things are voluminous. But would there be a way that you could see that would be fair and reasonable, but yet somewhat challenging?
I just had an
So
idea.
that people would have.
Yeah, Tony, it's Susan. I just had an idea. Ron, what about taking your checkoff list and turning it into a true or false quiz? I'm supposed to card everybody, true or false. Yeah. I'm supposed to, I'm allowed to sell stamped cigarettes, true or false, or fill in the blanks, or something like that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, not to give too much weight or credit to the statement, but it does explicitly state, I understand the following. There are 16 bullet points, all of which are the vast majority, aside from 4, are one sentence or one line statements. I don't want, well, in terms of a test, by the way, I think that would be extra regulatory, meaning it would impose something that's not in your regulations. Your regulations state kind of what was said earlier, which is not uncommon for regulatory language, which is you, by getting your permit, you agree that you have literally read all of the state, local, and federal laws.
Yeah, Ron, I get it.
Now, people don't do that. I mean, I'm not going to live in a fairy tale land to think people actually have read every line of 105 CMR 665, which is pages and pages long. And as you said, I mean, this is something that they take on as a responsibility. I wanted to go with a one-pager and the cover letter said, if you have any questions in regard. Now, we can't, that you can call me. It's a kind of a, leading a horse to water and situation. I think the vast majority will be able to decipher what's on that statement. I can do training, and I could do it virtually at this time, where if the owner, of course, the buck stops with the owner. However, if the owner feels as if their manager or their supervisor, the one that, if I don't know what the case is here at the marketplace, but if there's someone else involved with the day-to-day, the most difficult thing we've heard when there's been a sale to a minor is, it was somebody else, it wasn't the owner. So, I mean, I could be available to do that. And the other thing I could do, maybe sometimes, as is true in advertising, we could do something to the idea what Susan was saying, maybe a frequently asked question format, to make it just another way to educate. But I don't want to sound overly. I don't want to sound overly tough, but this one,
No,
I
Ron, you're
think
not.
it's. Yeah, I just don't want to sound overly tough, but I think the statement, the one pager, if you take, if the average person takes, I would say 5 minutes to read it at most, and then maybe another 5 minutes to ponder it, and then maybe the next 5 to just say, are there any questions I have? Is there any gray area? Do I want to know what section of the, if someone wants to pull out the regulations and see what sections correspond to this? Again, this one page is not supposed to give the entire law, but what it is the things that the state and the local community will be mostly looking for. These are the most important policies. So I really, maybe I should,
yeah.
Oh, no, I was going to say, maybe I should encourage more, make some phone calls, or maybe put out another mailing to just emphasize that if you have any question whatsoever, to reiterate, to reach out. That's how I feel my job is, to reach out and to offer something meaningful and informative. And if I don't know the answer to a question, which sometimes I don't, there are a variety of other things that are not in that statement that are a little bit gray areas. And I invite people to ask me.
That's great, Ron, because it does. It's clear to me what you're saying, and I agree. It's kind of pointless to lock the barn after the horse has escaped, because when you do buy a business, regardless of the business, whatever you do, when you sign your name to anything, it means you understand. I know that because I have multiple licenses, and I kind of know. I know the severities of infractions that occur. You don't get second chances when something, and usually the enforcement is swift, expensive, and not forgiving. So I think it would be great if more people could. Maybe we can put a red star on our licenses again, or something to really highlight people before you venture into this water. Be very sure you know what your obligations are, because the ramifications of any breach of the guidelines, and maybe people should spend more time reading and doing their due diligence before they venture into businesses, because there's that old adage, buyer beware. Well, I think you got to beware of everything nowadays, and so I'd take back saying take a test, because realistically we have a little bit of a dilemma in this situation where I'm understanding, but I think that maybe more people should take time to review what you've had and reach out, and because I know you'll talk to anyone, Ron, that takes the time to find out that you're a key asset for them. So let's move on to what Ray had to say, because it's kind of self-explanatory. Where it's either a yes or no situation here, and when people sign a permit, then they're going to have to honor what they've signed, I guess.
Susan, let me ask you this: on the tobacco sales permit application, does it ask anywhere, do you know, if this is the first time that are they a first time, I guess, applicant?
Business owner? I don't know. It's like, what difference does it make, right?
Well, just because
they should know what they're getting into it. Yeah.
Well, no, but if we had in our application just a simple checkbox of, have you ever held a tobacco sales license previously? If that information was elicited at that time of submittal, that this is their first time applying for a permit anywhere for sale of tobacco products, then at least Susan would know to contact Ron, so that Ron might want to have sort of a that on-the-spot training, or just something to make them aware of.
You do notify Ron, because he does go out, and when they change over ownership, in general. Of course, COVID was a whole different issue. No, we don't have a new owner checkbox, but we have, the, the statement that I understand I must comply with Board of Health regulations governing sales, and blah, blah, blah. That they have other licenses and things like that. But no, we would know if they're new. And we do try to educate them, and we do, but would I have ever said, do you have any unstamped cigarettes? No, it's not something that we would ever even think. But to say,
Right.
yeah, you need to get to know, you need to understand the regulations. That's all. Yeah, of course. So no, we don't.
Did they have stamped cigarettes being sold simultaneously,
Yes.
contemporaneously with these unstamped cigarettes? And
Yes, there were only a handful. Yeah, Ron went through and pulled off, and he found a few. I'm just quite surprised when we actually found the unstamped ones, because I hadn't seen it, although I don't check that often. But yeah, no, it was a certain types and brands. Like he said, a couple dozen boxes. That's all. I mean, packs. Sorry.
Was the original owner or the prior owner, once this incident developed, was there any inquiry into how these unstamped boxes? I mean, no one called the original owner. Like if I bought a car from somebody and there was a problem,
Well, you could ask Dawn. Dawn, did you happen to speak to the original owner? Is he still there?
No, I mean, the original owner has, she has like 10 different stores in multiple states. So, I don't even think he knew what he sold me. I think there's someone there that seems to know a lot about business, and I don't know if there's anyone who's ever purchased a store before, but there's a process when you purchase the inventory. It's a third-party company. So an owner that has several stores might not know everything, and I'm sure he doesn't know everything that is in his store. And there's a third-party company coming in, and they go through the inventory, literally $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of inventory in a matter of 2 hours, 3 hours max. So you can't watch them. It's impossible. They're a team of experts that do this. So I didn't see everything as the new owner, and the previous owner doesn't see everything either. They give us a sheet of paper at the end. This is what I obtained from the inventory. So, I mean, since then, I feel like I was trying to run a business. Of course, I could read pages and pages, and I am a reader, and I do my best to understand everything. But it's not only cigarettes, as a new business and in COVID, I could shut my store for 18 hours and read all day, but I did this to run a business. I didn't start this to make mistakes or to break the law. Yeah, so I don't know what to say. I mean, I did take a test. When you drive a car, we all take a test to get our license, but the reality is accidents still happen. Sometimes there's a snowstorm. You can take the test, but it can't prepare you for every possible potential situation.
Well, I think that it's really important that no matter what, people have to be prepared with dealing with adults once you get to, not children. So, and I do understand how difficult it is to take the time to do this. My question to you, Dawn, is did you pay someone to do an inventory of your store? I mean, I can't imagine in any business transaction, and I've had many, so I'm speaking from experience, and I am speaking from someone, and I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm truly not, because this is a unique situation that happened, and we would like it not to happen again. And consideration has been taken that this is, you are a new business owner, so I don't expect you to know everything. but there are certain things that are more important than others because of the ramifications from any breach. So my question to you was, I know that if someone's buying a house or buying any kind of business, an inventory will be done, and I do know because I used to do inventories, and I know that they're pretty precise. And I am saying was then either this stuff that was in there, if it was inventoried, the people that are supposedly experts should have picked up on this product. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you have cigarettes side by side, some with stamps, some without. They can be seen. And like I said, I'm not looking to place blame. I'm just trying to come to an understanding. And if you did pay somebody to inventory your product and they never saw this product because we're saying that either it wasn't there to begin with because the original owner didn't have it or it was put in someplace afterwards. My question is, we just need to identify it. So did you pay someone to look at this product, and when you bought the place, you knew how much product you had available, and they said, yep, you got 5 cartons of cigarettes, 4 cartons of beans, 3 cases of milk? Did you have that kind of like a inventory control?
No, I mean,
usually pretty good.
In this situation, and again, I don't have experience in how this works, but it was nothing like that. It was nothing about a bean or a cigarette or boxes of diapers or shampoo. It happened really quickly, and the people that are doing this, they're not reading every label on every box. They're going through with a digital scanner. Boom, 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 boom. They're doing probably 100 products within a minute. So no one is paying attention. What they're looking for is the value, not what the items are. They don't really care what the items are. They're coming up with a value that I have to pay to the owner for the inventory. I did not pay for the inventory. The owner, the existing owner, pays for the inventory, and then the inventory company gives me a bill of what I have to pay separately for the inventory.
So you don't, when you bought this business, you did not do a spot check. There's an old adage, trust but verify. Like, for example, and I don't want this to happen again for the business owner's sake because the consequences could be expensive if it became an issue that the state got involved with. But my question is, so when someone gave you an inventory and said you owe this much money, you as a first-time business owner didn't check. Like if I bought a house and it said the washing machine and dryer are in there, I know I would go check. Or so you didn't check any of the inventory. You just took what they said as gospel and paid for it. And the reason why I asked that is because maybe it wasn't there when you bought it. Maybe it was introduced somewhere along the line. I'm not trying to belabor this. I'm just trying to figure out what we can do as a Board of Health to address this unique situation that we've been confronted with. So you didn't check at all the inventory?
When the inventory was done, we had a scheduled time, and I was on site. There are 3 people taking inventory, and I'm one person. Of course, if I bought a house, I could check for a washer and dryer. But this is a store with 1,000 SKUs, 10,000, maybe 100,000 SKUs. So, yeah, I do check that. I don't think,
you don't
if
have,
I didn't tell me you owe me $60,000 for inventory, look, there's another thing you can do is visually look to say, put together an estimate in your head of what your business were. So there's a part of just knowledge, a little bit of, products and what their value is. And as a shopper, homemaker, mother, whatever, I can put the numbers together in my head. And then I was on site. Was I paying specific attention to anyone's cues? No. As I said, it's a very quick process. So that's the way it happened. I don't know how else to explain it to you. There was a whirlwind, believe me.
Excuse me, Don. No, you don't have to explain it to me because I very well understand. I've done inventories. I've done auditing. The reason why I asked that is we don't want this to happen again, and I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to understand because when someone sells you product, especially in a store, you have date codes to be dealt with and other things. So I'm just trying to figure out, what can we do to avoid this? Because Ron can't make a test stop for people that haven't read something the first time. I'm not dealing with young children. I'm dealing with adults that say they want to be in business. And I'm a firm believer that if you go into business in something, you better know everything about the business and read everything you're supposed to, or you align yourselves with people that know everything about the business, because regardless of whether you've read it, whether you're not aware of it, when an incident happens, fortunately, no one got hurt. No one was, there was no disease spread, but this is something that we have to oversee for our community. And because from what Ron stated, you signed the license saying you read it and you're aware of it, and now we have a situation that it is somewhat unique, but we have a couple of choices which way to go here. I mean, we can't give you a test and say take it the second time, so we just want to avoid this for later on. So I understand what you're saying, and I truly understand what's going on here. Ray, I don't want to take more time up from where you were going to the next one, but I have some thoughts that maybe I'd like to share later on with everybody.
Yeah, no, I think for the purpose tonight, I think we've had plenty of discussion this,
I appreciate
and what's been done is done. Ron has a good idea of what to do in the future to try to educate others, and I think we just leave it at that. And there's a lot to do as a new business owner, and again, there was no health impacts from this. This is more of a state issue, and in our tobacco regs, we just state that the owner has to be in compliance with all state regulations, and that's how this one came into being. So, so Don, I hope we didn't feel like we raked you over the coals tonight, but we just wanted to get an idea of moving forward, what could be done to help educate others. So trying to learn from this lesson and share it with others. So I thank you for being on the
and
call tonight.
I'm not at all trying to make an excuse. I mean, there absolutely is no excuse. I should know everything.
No, and we're not asking you to.
The reality is, and and also, and I don't want to say COVID had a huge impact, but it turned the business upside down. I mean, for the suppliers, with just walking in like the next day after buying a business. So my focus was maybe if the state didn't shut down the next day, maybe things would have been different. Maybe I would have had more time to review the inventory. But it was like ready, fire, aim with that situation, being a new business owner. And I'm not saying this as an excuse. I'm saying it as a reality. And I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from this meeting.
No, from the guy.
And a lot from the whole situation.
Yeah, so I know, Ron, and the last thing I'll just mention, Ron, is I know that you've always said in the past when there's been a tobacco sales violation, and unfortunately, usually that offender person made the sale was let go, you usually say that's probably not the best thing to do, because they're going to be probably the most valuable employee, because now they're going to be more aware of what they can and should not be doing. So I think in this case, we now have a business owner that has a heightened sense of awareness of what needs to be done on tobacco products. So I guess we can just end our discussion on that note. So Don, I thank you for joining us tonight. And I guess the only question I have, Susan, I think more procedural is, I believe, or they did pay the $100 fine?
Yes, they did.
Okay. And there's nothing for us to vote on. There's no motions. It was simply just to have them come before us. And so there's no penalty we need to
Correct.
impose. But the only thing I did want to finalize discussion on is that this does count as one of 3 strikes in our tobacco regulation.
Mm-hmm.
So that if there is a sales infraction that's occurred, this would then be counted as a second violation of our tobacco regulation. Am I correct in that?
That's right. And I just wanted to check your tolling period. Of course, on this, it gets a little confusing. It's funny. I didn't really think of this before meeting with you, but the state law has a 3-year tolling period, which basically, I'm sorry, is Don still there?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, the regulation, the state regulations have a 3-year tolling period, which basically means that it's a look back period. So if an offense occurs on January 1st, 2020, you've got to go through 2020, 2021, and 2022 before any previous violations don't count, as it were. So, in this case here, however, this violation's not one. The violation, the citation was written for the purposes of not complying with a state Department of Revenue policy or regulation. So this would not count as a strike, so to speak, for and I'm sure this is not going to occur, but in the case, let's say there was a flavored tobacco product violation, the state law's first violation will arguably be more stringent than the local regulation. It's $1,000 fine for a sale of flavored tobacco
Correct.
or flavored vapes. The only interesting thing it raises is in your regulations, which I believe have a 2-year look back period, and we do have some. I think we spoke during the last meeting that there are some local regulations that if the board has the the time, and you were one of the more advanced and progressive of all the boards we work with, but if you want to improve them, we have some suggestions. But in your case, the key strength in your regulations is a second violation includes a 7-day, or I should say a 7-day suspension.
201 needs to go on mute. They're not. Lisa won't be able to hear with the interference, whoever it is.
So is that okay?
Yep.
All right. So anyways, you unknowingly you stumbled onto an actually quite interesting legal question. And I think it just, in this case here, if it was the unstamped cigarettes, the state law on it alone is an ominous law that has very severe penalties. And frankly, it was the thing I was most concerned with. And I know the staff there at the marketplace who I spoke with, 2 of the individuals, know after my call back and such, I don't want them in that hot water. It's terrible. It's a real tough law to violate. But in this case here, if there is an infraction, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that a vape product is sold that is over 35 milligrams per milliliter, or you don't have a document that states what you're flavored to, what you're not. I'm sorry, you don't have a document that shows that every product that you have on the shelves is certified to be not flavored by the document. If that were a violation, it would be a first violation for purposes of the state law, which is 105 CMR 665. It would depending, and I won't go much further into this, but let's say the flavor wasn't menthol, but it was flavored with something besides mint, menthol, or wintergreen. technically that would be a second violation of your local regulations. And there's nothing in the state law that preempts anything stronger in the local regulations. So as I'm thinking this out loud, and I would have to be, I want to consult perhaps with Boston, with our partners there. But I think what would happen in this case, if there was another infraction within the next 2 years, at least in regard to your local regulations, it would trigger the $1,000 fine for, let's say again, the flavored or for the document under the state law under a first violation, but it would probably constitute a second violation of your local regulations, so long as that flavor is anything but mint, wintergreen, or menthol, because you prohibited all flavored tobacco. I don't know if that makes sense what I just said. It made sense to me, but I had to kind of, it's a little more convoluted than I had. What seemed like a simple question.
You did the best you could. I think we got
it. I could. Just because it made sense to me
On the
doesn't mean I
bright
said it
side-
right. Don't do anything.
On the bright side, we're scaling back on our tobacco cigarettes altogether. We're focusing on growing the business, and putting in deli, and we've expanded the lottery area and minimized the cigarettes. So, I mean, it's the goal to make this a nice market and deli, and have tobacco as just something that, you need to have an essential offering of just key brands, but really to minimize also the all tobacco.
Right. So I only brought this up just so that you're aware, John, of what could happen in the future related to this. So that was my purpose for it. So thank you, Ron, for your clear explanation. I understood what you were saying. If it's a violation of something that's in our regulation, then that counts in that 2-year window. If it's a state violation, then that's not necessarily in our window if it doesn't violate our regulation. I think you summarize it. So, Don, thank you for attending tonight. And Ron, as always, thank you for helping us out in this matter.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Done.
Good night. Good night, Ron and Don.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to our other item of new business. Lisa's Pizza, 2312 Main Street, request for minor modification of the existing variance approved by Missouri Board of Health on March 3rd, 2011 regarding the grease removal system. And I think just as a quick note before I turn over to Susan for this, the only member of the current Tewksbury Board of Health that was on the board back in 2011, I think was you, Mr. Rue. That was before my time. So I think you were on the board back then?
Yes, Ray.
Okay. So Susan, I'll let you take over in this. Susan, you're muted.
Sorry, I was looking at my notes instead of the mute button. Yeah, so this is one of the oldest new items that we have. So June of 2019, a letter was sent to Lisa's Pizzas in regard to the new regulations, even though Lisa's had and this was standard to anyone who had an existing situation. I sent a letter and requested that they have the inspection done to make sure it's in good working order. That had to do with anyone who was on septic or anyone who had something like this. So that stimulated the beginning conversations about this particular unit that was in there. The person servicing it, was recommending that it be replaced. And they engaged Mr. Ross. Paul Ross is here representing the owner or owners of Lisa's Pizza tonight. So in that time, a lot, has transpired. We were putting in all those other, grease tanks and everything else. And so there came the fall. And then just a lot of things happened, as you know, with the COVID in the spring. But here we are. Since then, just to let you know, since then the service has been upped to maintain the best possible. But it does need to be replaced, and their variance is in effect. So they could put in a Big Dipper. The Big Dipper was specifically called out in the variance of 2011. The representative, Mr. Ross, has put in a request. He'd rather not put in that particular unit, and he's recommended a different unit. So hence the minor modification of this existing. I've checked with town council. Town council says that the old variance trumps the new regulation, the way it was written. So this is where we're at right now. I guess I could have Mr. Ross describe a few things. I don't want to, can't go over the entire package. Everyone did receive the package. I'm not sure how much we need to talk about. That's the gist of it.
If it's appropriate for me, this is Attorney Paul Ross representing Lisa's Family Pizza. You have the package. I think it was pretty comprehensive, and I certainly don't want to go over all the details, but I believe everything's in there that would show you that the manufacturer has sized the new unit. The new unit is called a grease shield, and it's the one that's currently recommended by the service provider, which is Food Grease Trappers. The existing units, the Big Dipper, I know that had some storied past after it was approved in Tewksbury. It's currently working, but requires just a lot more maintenance and upkeep than the replacement unit would. So it's really the current owner, Lisa's Pizza, is trying to upgrade. And the way the variance is written, we're really here for a technical issue, because instead of saying that the variance was written for any automatic electric grease trap, it was written specifically for the Big Dipper, which makes some sense, because this is now forcing the owner to come in, provide you with all the information for the new unit, show that the new unit's properly sized. So rather than switching this out for the same unit, we've got a different unit, and that's all we're really requesting. And I think all of the backup is here. The existing unit's about 9 years old, so it's a piece of mechanical equipment. It makes sense to upgrade. I can answer any questions you have. The one thing I would point out is at the end of the exhibits, you'll see that there is a grease interceptor maintenance agreement signed by both the restaurant operator as well as the property owner, and the property owner is fully aware of what they're doing.
And Paul, I think the other key part of your submittal was a printout from the state website listing that this equipment that you're proposing to be installed is on the accepted plumbing products. So the state has already approved this type of device for use. And Susan, I believe you checked with our plumbing inspector, and he was also
he did
on the
concur.
list.
He
Okay.
concurred that is on the list for the approved plumbing products.
Yes, that's Exhibit 3. Technically, the Big Dipper is also still been relisted. As people on the board probably know, at one point it was delisted, but those Big Dipper models are listed as well. It's really that the service provider believes this is going to be a superior unit in terms of maintenance and ease of use for the restaurant operator. So that's really why they're here to change the units. I mean, it would be a lot less expensive for them to keep the same unit, but it's not going to really accomplish the goals of either the board or the restaurant operator, because it's going to require some replumbing in the inside the unit, inside the restaurant, excuse me.
And then Susan, just to confirm, you and I talked previous about this, and you would follow up with town council that the variance as written, essentially they're able to use the Big Dipper and something that would be akin to that's on the state plumbing code or state approved list is still covered by the variance. So this is for, I guess, more technically more of coming before us, just so that we hear what's being done, but we're not
Yeah,
really
like
the one
Paul
to
said, though,
modify
I
the
mean,
variance.
yeah, like Paul said, it's probably good. It seemed strange to mention the Big Dipper in the variance, but then on the other hand, he's right. They are here and they do have to show what they want to do. Its simplest would have been if they just put in a Big Dipper. They would not have come and it just would have been replaced. But since then, you know, I came in after the new regulation, which we can't apply to this, but as you can see in his packet, some of the things that we ask of new owners is in there. The maintenance agreement has been very important to the board members so that the owners of the building are included. And, you know, the understanding really of the owners of leases of what the mechanical requirements of, you know, of them, like what they have to do. They have to really keep up on those records. I think they're doing quarterly, if not more, depending, but they're sticking with the quarterly, even though that's more of an outdoor grease trap thing. They're applying the quarterly maintenance or cleaning of that. Maybe we can ask them to send pictures, you know, something, you know, they have been applying some of the things we ask for in general. And I think I mentioned to Mr. Ross that if there is, I think that we could also ask them if we wanted to do we can always do a downstream check of, you know, how that would be in the future. I mean, you know, the grease content, if there was any concern, say if DPW said, gee, we're having problems in there, you know, we'd have the right to go and, you know, test that outflow if they were having problems in that part of town or something. So.
Right. And Paul, correct me if I'm not mistaken, when you were working with another client at Cary Plaza for the Shire product, I think it was Origins Tie, there was a testing outlet installed in that so we could test downstream, I believe.
There is, yes.
Okay.
There's a sampling port, they call it. And actually there's two of those. Oh, actually, I take that back. There's three of those at Cary Plaza right now. Okay. All three Shire units have a downstream sampling port. I honestly don't know if there's a sampling port per se with this unit. That's a unique thing to the Shire type of units that we installed. But there are ways that we can sample, I think, if there was a problem in town. I mean, it would be, if you were having a problem in that section of town, you'd be endeavoring to check everybody to figure out where it was coming from. I know that Cary Plaza in years past had problems and you know, they were out cleaning the street mains because of it. But I think you'd approach it the same way.
Yeah, because I think ultimately the board's goal is to make sure that the allowable fog limit is not exceeded by having something other than what was specifically called out. And that's where we looked at allowing the Shire units to go in with the test port, just so that there was a way we could sample and prove that it was doing what it was advertised to do. And I think the same thing here, that if there is a problem, that there would be, you said, some way to be able to get a sample just to document how well it was doing its job.
I would have to talk to the manufacturer or the distributor and find out if that's an option. I can report back to Susan on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was more thinking of just as if, like he said, as if there was any problem in a sewer, you could pop a manhole, you could see where it ties in, they can camera things. There's, you know, the things that I think the sewer department would help us in that. So it's not something that we can put on as a condition, but I think the owner knows of what is required by this new code. So that's why they've offered many of the things that we usually put on as conditions.
And I've had some experience with you. I don't have as much experience with this issue as Charlie does. I got involved, I think, in 2014, helping out in town with these issues. But I recognize that the board, as a board, doesn't really like this approach. And this is really kind of a grandfathered situation because it came up in 2011 in response to the kind of the original attempt by the town to require grease interceptors. So that's one of the reasons we did what we did with this submittal package, to make sure that we were trying to comply with some of the new things that are in the new regulation, even though technically our variance was to a prior regulation, which was actually more, the regulation previously was much more onerous. It required a 5,000 gallon tank instead of a minimum 1,500 gallon tank, which I think is also some of the reasons, and maybe Charlie can speak to that, but some of the reasons why this variance was granted originally as well. So we tried to address some of your new concerns to the extent we could.
Mr. Chairman,
Go right ahead, Mr. Rue.
through you to Mr. Ross. How you doing, Paul?
Good evening.
So, a point of clarification: is this a grease trap or a grease interceptor, as is the Big Dipper, Paul?
It's the same. It's really the same type of unit as a Big Dipper. It's an automatic It's classified as an automatic electric grease trap. So it's not separate. It's not separate from another grease trap. It's a single unit. Probably easier to look at the spec we provided.
Yeah, I just looked at it tonight, to be perfectly honest with you, but it seems to me, it looks like a grease trap to me, not an interceptor. I'm not. I mean, all these alternative technologies, I'm suspicious of all of them, Paul, because they just have problems.
I realize that, Charlie, and we've talked about this several times. This is not a trap like you think of that has the chambers in it. This is the and I think you probably were involved with the Big Dipper. It's the style has a rotary drum that extracts the grease as a film, scrapes it off, and then accumulates the grease that's then cleaned out much more frequently. But they're cleaning out smaller quantities of grease, and the grease is higher quality, so they can get rid of it easier. So the maintenance on a daily basis, say, is a lot easier than like say the in-ground grease trap that's cleaned on a monthly basis.
So this is actually an interceptor. It's not a trap. Like we require traps in the kitchens anyway. So this isn't a Cadillac grease trap. This is a grease interceptor.
I guess I'm not really sure how to answer that question. I think it is a grease trap. It's also a grease interceptor. It's the unit that's designed to extract all the grease from the waste stream coming out of the 3-bay sink.
Yeah, from the sinks. Yeah,
correct.
We have them. We require them anyway. But this is something different, right?
Yes, it's the same. It's the same type of unit that the Big Dipper is. It functions essentially the same. It's just a different manufacturer that, again, the distributor believes will provide a lot better function to the client. In this case, Lisa's Pizza. This one has, I believe this is a difference too between the Big Dipper, although I should probably double check that. But this has a pre-filter. So similar to wok tables, it has a pre-filter that all the solids go into first before the grease stream goes into the unit itself to extract the grease. And if you looked at the spec, that's the box that's on the left side there.
Yep. Okay. I'm not a plumber, and I'm sure this abides by all the plumbing codes in the state. I'm an outside guy, so if this meets or exceeds the Big Dipper, I'm fine with it. I was just looking, for a little clarification on what the hell it was. That's all.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and
I can
Charlie,
send the
this
board a
is-
link because I think they have a video on this too, Charlie. If you want, I can send Susan a link. She can forward it to you.
And Charlie, this
Well,
is a
it's
good
a
example of why we're trying to avoid variances moving forward as much as we can.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
I'm
grandfather
up with that.
situation. It's kind of unique.
Bob,
Thank you.
this is Bob Scarano. My understanding is that this is a modification of a pre-existing variance. Am I correct in that assumption?
Yes, you are. It's a minor modification. If you were to look at the actual variance that was issued in 2011, which is Exhibit 1, on page 2. Sorry, I got to put glasses on. On page 2, it says that the proposed system, parens, Big Dipper, be installed. So the concern was, and both I and the client wanted to be upfront with the board. It says Big Dipper specifically. If you install a Little Dipper or anything else that doesn't say Big Dipper on it, then it's not the right product. So the variance wouldn't necessarily cover them. So really, we're just here to show that we're installing another unit identical, in function-wise anyway, to the Big Dipper and providing all the backup for it. So it's really just a modification because the specific brand name was used in the variance, which is unique.
And I think you've demonstrated that the original variance, which was granted under much stricter condition because you had a higher burden, basically manifest injustice, and you now are requesting this modification. And normally, when you have a modification of a variance, you want to be able to demonstrate the same burden and the same hardship. And if you've met the burden in the initial grant of the variance, and we now have a piece of equipment that technically is superior or equal to the Big Dipper, and I don't see the Big Dipper being eliminated from the state list of equipment. It would seem to me, as the speaking to the rest of the board, that they have demonstrated the same hardship that was demonstrated initially when they got the variance. And if that were the case, and I would put this out to the board, once they demonstrate that this would be a substantial hardship, or back in the day that it was granted, manifest injustice, that the board would be within its legal grounds to grant the modification based on the equipment that's being replaced that is similar to the Big Dipper. They're not doing anything that really is outside the Big Dipper's function, and I feel, and I would tell the rest of the board, that I think they've met the burden again, and that would allow this board to make a finding that the modification was in order.
I would agree with that, Bob.
Yep, no, I concur as well.
And I'm going to make that a formal motion that we approve the application with the technology that has been depicted, B, that we adopt the modification with the conditions that the owner and the operator would both sign on and be responsible for the future satisfaction of all the regulations. And 3, that any deviation or any repairs or any future modifications to this equipment, we would invite the applicant back with another modification request if in fact it arose that other equipment became available that was equal to or better than the Big Dipper.
It's appropriate.
Bob, Charlie here.
Yes, Charlie.
So would that incorporate any change of use within the restaurant itself regarding any types of foods or whatever that they're preparing as opposed to what they have and what they are preparing right now?
I would say yes, Charlie, because when you have a change of an applicant, you have a change of a menu, and you have a change of fog, and you have a change of waste. And it would seem prudent that if a new operator stepped in Lisa's place, that operator appear before the board to demonstrate that the technology that's currently going in there is sufficient to handle those burdens.
I agree. So we're assuming that the menu is the same as it was in 2011, correct?
I am assuming that it is fairly substantially similar, and I only say that from a resident perspective. I don't see anything that would raise the specter that it's a completely different operation. It seems very similar as to when the original technology went in, and that's my point here is that I think they've met the burden, and it was a higher burden back then. It was manifest injustice. Of course, variances have evolved, but I think they've met the higher burden, and I think they've demonstrated a technology that is consistent with the Big Dipper or improving the removal of fog. So that would be the basis of my motion as I laid it out with A, B, and C.
So do you want a second on that?
Yeah, well, looking for a second on that.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Okay. So the motion's been put forth and seconded to approve the modification of variance.
I heard
Go
2
ahead.
seconds. Which second did we choose?
I heard Charlie.
Charlie.
Oh, Tony.
Okay.
So I guess Tony's going to be second.
Go with Tony. Okay.
Yeah, we'll go Tony for second.
Just want to be clear for at least. Thanks.
You don't want to have two Italians agreeing with each other.
So motion's been put forth and seconded. So we'll do a roll call vote for yay or nay. Mr. Scarano?
Yay.
Mr. Rue?
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti?
Yay.
Chair votes yay as well, so the motion carries unanimously 4-0.
So the public comments might be closed, but if I could just add 2 points to follow up. I had just noticed in the specs that there is a sampling port on these units. That was requested earlier. So
Okay.
it comes with a sampling port. Can't tell you exactly what it looks like, but we can figure that out. And then to address the issue about future changes, this would be on file with the Board of Health, so a new operator would have access to the stuff that I submitted. The manufacturer actually upsized the size of the unit. Instead, the calculations called for 20 gallons per minute flow rate, and they're providing a unit, or they're actually speccing a unit that's 25 gallons. So it's like 25% larger in capacity than required by design. But thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, everybody. And Bob, should we count you in? Thanks for joining us, Bob. Do you know we'll count you in on what time you showed up with your first comment, or were you here way before that?
Oh, I was here way before it, and I heard the prior discussion with the tobacco enforcement officer. I heard all of that.
Okay, so what time can we say that you actually showed up then, so you can be?
I believe it was 6:32.
Wow. You looked at your watch. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Scarano.
Yes.
And Brian may actually have a way of looking at attendance report to see when he joined as well.
Yeah, I really didn't notice another person showing up.
Well, I did call in. I did call in twice on that number, and I will say that the system is quite efficient in that you don't have to put the code anymore. It dials it completely, and then you connect when you do click on the link. Unfortunately, I'm up in New Hampshire, so that connection lasted about a minute before I had to read you back.
Well, we're glad you joined us tonight.
Yes, yes.
Okay, moving on to old business, COVID-19.
Well, it's really, Irvi had a long day today, so she will not be joining us. So I won't be able to answer any questions or most questions that you might have. I think we all know where we are as far as we're still a yellow community, doing very well. And we wanted to focus today on talking about not really Halloween, because I think Halloween people have got their ideas of what they're going to do to, whether they leave their candy out or whether they don't have a party. But there are no town sponsored Halloween events this year. No Safe Halloween and no trunk or treat sponsor with the town. Just to let you know, it's strictly just trick or treat. But we're really looking forward into the fall and indoor gatherings. Just trying to be thoughtful of, yes, we all have traditions, but this whole year, this might be a year to try, having smaller groups, and there is going to be and are things out on our website and other websites to give some reason behind that. And I know, Ray, you had some thoughts as well. What is the community we should be focusing on as residents, supporting each other through this?
Yeah, and I think to start off, you had originally called me for one of the last selectmen meetings where they were going to be bring up the subject of Halloween and what to do, and we had a discussion. I said we need to allow it to go on and not withhold as some communities are, but more importantly, as we're getting into the fall season and into winter, where people will be more confined indoors, looking at people have to be mindful of what they need to do to prevent the spread of COVID-19 as we're trying to get into the holiday season. And with that, meeting with families and with college students coming home at Thanksgiving, and even Dr. Brooks was concerned that now it seems like there's more of they're not seeing the spread in public places, but they are starting to see the spread within homes. And that's really where I think the focus of this is, that we want people to enjoy the holidays, but to give an extra thought of caution to how can we enjoy the holidays, but do it safely.
Yeah, and I think Irvi would reiterate the thought about people coming home. We're not, when we say young people passing around, we're not really talking about school age kids. We're talking about college and higher, out of school, living on their own, enjoying life, and then coming home and being with mom and dad and the rest of the family. And that's it. There really hasn't been a common, there's little common denominators here and there, but that really is what it seems right now. There's no smoking gun with many of these things. There's no way to pinpoint exactly where they're coming, but it feels a little different. It's not. The businesses are doing a great job. The schools are doing a terrific job. The committee with the schools that I'm on for the task force, and we're putting together a multi-page tips and thank yous and why are we doing it. We're just we're just saying, that we're still working on this, and we're not telling people, you have to do this. We're not saying this is a law. We're saying here's some tips. If you're going to make some choices, choose A over B, for the reasons of just the common good. But it's not a mandate piece of, multiple page. This is how you can comply, with, yes, the governor's mandates are out there, but we're more concerned about keeping the kids in school and keeping our elders safe. Unfortunately, they're at home, and really want people to reach out to their elder family members and friends. Senior Center's doing pretty good job with what they can, but there's only so much virtual bingo and yoga and things that they can do. But yeah, we're in that the community really just needs to find the people who need us the most, and need each other the most, and take care of those people. That's kind of our message as a group.
Well, I think that's a great message, Susan. I would only add that we know that there is one vulnerable group that is susceptible more than any other to this disease. And it would seem to me that as a family, you would look at that vulnerability, whether it be premorbidity or age or both, or a combination of those factors, that families, when they're coming together, have to realize that the most vulnerable need the most protection. And that means that you have to look inward and make that decision, and think about where you've been, what you've been doing, who you've been with, before you come into contact with that susceptible person. I think if that's done over the holidays, if that thought process can be utilized before contact is made, before you start socializing very quickly, and the hugs and kisses and all of those things that go with the holidays are traditions. But in this case, we're just going to have to keep one step away and one thought in our mind, that while we want to make contact, we want to make contact carefully, with the appropriate protection, the appropriate separation, and the appropriate thought process, and who the most vulnerable is in the household, and keep that in mind.
Thank you for that, Bob, because I think that the time that people tend to let the guard down is when you're in the confines of the security of your own house. And this is where we're trying to reiterate that you need to give a little extra thought this year when you're in your house. So thank you for, as well, Susan, that good explanation of what we're trying to do with this. And I see you down for direct reports. So seeing we're running a little late tonight. Anything you wanted to bring up tonight that we can't defer to next month?
Oh, no, not so much. It's just business is moving forward. People are buying businesses, or they're also, I think something just flew on me. Sorry, I just got distracted. Must be one of those fall stink bugs, right? Yeah, no, that we're just still doing, things are moving forward, schools being built, applications, permitting time, they're going out. So we're trying to do the regular job, but still the COVID is a daily grind for us. And you never know how much it's the work behind, and it's not because it's so bad. It's the work that's behind it. It just takes so much time, and Irby is still working quite a bit of overtime, and will continue to do so. She's a trooper, but she did take the weekend off, which I thought was good, and hopefully she'll do that more. But I would definitely want to thank her for all that she does. And just sitting with her today while she had to make some phone calls for the contacts and things, it just is, they're not home, they're going to call you back, they're, all this. So it just takes time, and that's all. Just a lot of time. So thank you for your support. We appreciate it. In regarding her staff report, the flu clinics went smoothly that she had, and we've just received some more high dose. People can call in if they are interested. Seniors, there's some high dose. They can get an appointment. So we have probably half of it already claimed, for appointments, but we got 60 doses of the high. So, but thank you.
And Susan, just a quick question: that if a senior makes an appointment for the flu shot, where are they going to get it? Is that the health department office or at the senior center?
Well, she had her one at the senior center, and she'd been to all the elder places. So it would be at our building.
Okay.
It would be by appointment. So I can't tell you when or where, but I don't know if she'd have them come downstairs or upstairs. It depends if she does them all at once or a few at a time. I'm not really sure what her plan is. We're happy
So it'll be
to
done
have
at
gotten
town hall.
Town hall, yeah.
Okay.
And when I say call us, I mean the health department.
Yeah. Okay, and then under announcements, just that October was Substance Abuse Prevention Month, and this year everything's having been done virtually. So next month we're hoping to have a new chief of police as well as Maria Ruggiero join us and to give us an overview of what was done for Substance Abuse and Prevention Month activities, as well as to hear from the chief about what he sees the department doing for that work going forward. I guess I had two that you had in the agenda that there is on the Tewksbury Cares Facebook page that there is a newly added Narcan demonstration video. So even though Maria had done it at one of our last Board of Health meetings, there's also now one on Facebook.
And that's enough that information for me tonight.
Okay. So anything from any of the other board members before we make it Charlie's turn? Okay.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I have nothing. I should say I do have one thing. I think when people do elect to purchase businesses within the community, that they do their due diligence before they sign for acknowledgement of licenses or whatever. Because as I said, I know personally, I'm not real tolerant of people that want to do something, get involved with a business, and they don't know all the ramifications. So hopefully what happened tonight doesn't show up again, but I would like to put a reminder out to the community. If you're going to buy a business, you really should know what your liabilities are. And I think it's prudent not only for our community and public safety, but also for your safety and well-being in business. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Rue?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we close tonight's meeting.
Okay. Someone willing to second that motion?
I'll second
second
that
it.
motion for Mr. Rue.
Okay. So motion's been put forth and second to adjourn tonight's meeting. We'll take a roll call vote, yay or nay. Mr. Scarano?
Yay.
Mr. Rue?
Yay.
Dr. Bichetti?
Yes, and that's two Italians and a Frenchman in agreement. So yes.
Okay. And the Irishman will vote yay as well. So motion carries unanimously 4-0. So it is 8:02 p.m. So good night, Tewksbury.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Stay
Good night, everybody.
safe.
Good night, everyone.